begins, sizing up Murphy, drives, floats, hangs, and scores on the turnaround. J-Dub way behind the three-point line and hits way behind the three-point line. Got blocked. What a rejection by Holmgren. Standing tall like a wall.
This is Dart. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Uncontested Weekly Show, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm your host on this Wednesday night, JD Silva, joined by Taylor Peterson.
Silva, happy to be here. We have NFL football kicking off. My team kicks off the season, the Chiefs, tomorrow night. Cannot wait. We obviously have NFL and college now, but that just means we're getting closer and closer to NBA basketball also. I think Jacob and I were talking earlier today. I think we're like maybe 3.5-ish weeks away from training camp. So almost to like that golden era of the NBA, of the sports calendar where you have NBA, eventually college basketball, and then college football and NFL. It just doesn't get much better.
Really good time.
Almost made it.
I've been content starved for a while, and I know we're getting back into things because Zach Lowe dropped an episode today, and it's been like over a month since he has.
Yeah,
I'm
I saw that
stuff. We're starting to gear
that
back
means
up.
We're getting close. That's right.
Yeah,
he's back from his summer break.
Yeah, I look forward to training camp's cool because you can see like physical differences in players, and you'll hear like this player gained this amount of weight and muscle, and like I saw Kaysen Wallace gained like 15 pounds or something like that in the off season. It's like, okay.
It's up to like 200 and something.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's pretty sick. We're just gonna keep getting little stuff like that. We
need to make thick boy shirts with him and Lou.
Does Caruso count?
We got the Thin Towers. We had to retire that one. So yeah, I mean Caruso, he's just wiry though. You know,
he is more wiry
and he's taller. It's more distributed.
Yeah,
Kaysen's like 6'2" and just built like Lou, like a tank.
Built just like Lou. We're gonna be talking about Kaysen quite a bit tonight. Actually, we have a episode centered around our bench and benches in general. It's the off season. We just gotta come up with topics. We're gonna figure stuff out and have some fun. It's probably be a shorter show, just like our last one was. We got Brighton in the
here,
chat.
Silva. Don't challenge me. I said I'm here, Silva. Don't challenge me.
We got Brighton listening without audio. That's a real fan.
I'm not sure what he means by that. Like he's not using with his usual audio.
Maybe he's just
or if he's
busy.
Just like,
he's got the stream on.
He's just giving us the stream, giving us the view in the stream. That's awesome.
Appreciate
Shout out
it.
Brighton, long time listener.
We got Jacob Niffin's hair in here. Everybody's hanging out. Got your brother in here.
Okay, Jacob Niffin's hair. We got a text on Sunday, all of us, and so it was like, which one of you is this? And all of us that were on the show were like, it's not us. So well done. You have us all
for sure it was Nick.
And it could be. Nick's not on the podcast tonight. Still could be Nick.
Yeah. He'd never admit to it. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating. Leave us a review. Leave us some comments. Hopefully not hateful ones. We're getting some of those recently. We hate that. Everybody be cool. Be cool. I'm Jacob's hair. What do you mean?
That's fair.
Says Jacob Niffin's hair. Can't argue with that. All right. Let's get into this, Taylor. Bench talk. We're going to first start out with some Thunder-specific questions for you. Some Bernie questions, if you want to call it like that. I'll have you do some rankings, some projections, maybe little over-unders. Should be fun. So, to start us out, a little stat for you. Last season, the Thunder finished 13th in bench scoring, averaging 34.6 points per game off the bench. If I were to set that over-under for next season at 34, taking the over or the under. Actually, let me do some edits in real time. 36.5.
Ooh, and now we're talking. My first reaction when I saw this in the doc at 34 was that I'm hammering the over. But even then, I started to think a little more about it. And look, I'm still going over. And I'm still going over with your 36 line also.
Yeah.
But not by a whole lot. Just because, like, I think we're all caught up in the off-season excitement, right? Hartenstein coming on the team, Alex Caruso coming onto the team. Again, nothing but praise for Josh Giddey as a player and a person. I mean, I guess we're still waiting on details from certain aspects off the court, but assuming that all cleared, just in general, I don't mean this as a knock on Josh Giddey, but the fit, as we talked so much about last year, was not there. So them addressing that, bringing in more depth, and then having all these young players improving, like it's so easy to think, Thunder are going to have 40 points per game off the bench. But I think Jacob and I actually were on a podcast last night with Dan Favelli of Bleacher Report, doing a Thunder offseason preview or Thunder season preview and kind of recapping the offseason. And when we were kind of going through that, one of the things I kept thinking about is like, okay, we're saying all these things about Hartenstein coming on the team and Caruso coming onto the team, but we also have these big expectations of all these players from the big three, Chet, Dub, and Shea, to the Case and Wallaces and those players off the bench that we want to see them continue to improve and develop. So if we're expecting Dub, Chet, and Shea to take big leaps, like how much more room does that leave on the NBA floor in scoring, right? It's not like these guys are going to score 200 points a game. It's not how it works. Like it's a give and take. And so because of that, when I was thinking through this, that's why I don't want to say I'm just going to absolutely hammer the over. But so the reason I will go over here, even when you increase it to 236, is for the low-hanging fruit, the obvious reasons. And Hartenstein, I think he averaged like 7.8 points per game last season. I see that being closer to 10, just the way this offense, I think we'll just incorporate him, the opportunities that he will have from the playmaking guards, to be able to feed him, some of the easy putbacks he'll be able to have. I think that's going to be huge for him. And then, again, if we expect leaps from like a Case and Wallace to go up another couple points per game, and then you still have Isaiah Joe off the bench and Aaron Wiggins and whoever else maybe in the rotation, I think for that reason, I'm going over. I think they'll be flirting with like 38.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question. Do they finish top 10 in bench scoring? And for reference, so the Thunder, I said, finished with 34.6 points per game in bench scoring. If they wanted to break into the top 10 last year, 10th was the Heat at 35.9. 9th, the Clippers at 36.3.
That's exactly what I pulled up as well. And I think they absolutely do. But I'm looking at this, and I said, I could see them getting like 38. Well, you look at 38 points per game off the bench, that would put them right there at about 7th with the Detroit Pistons. And again, the
Pistons are there.
Yeah, right. The Pacers were first in bench points at 46.8. Yes, they had a great bench, but also it comes down to like the way the team's constructed. The Utah Jazz had 43.5 points. They were second in bench points last season. And that's because they're prioritizing their young guys, trying to start them, and they're bringing off veterans like Jordan Clarkson and whoever else off the bench. So it's a little misleading. But that being said, I still feel good about that 38 mark. If that's where they end up, that would still put them about 7th or 8th. So I'm going to say they do crack the top 10. But I'm curious your thoughts. Do you agree, disagree with me on the previous 2 points? What are you thinking?
I think I agree. I think they're going to crack the top 10. Which is going to be weird. I was looking at...
I'm laughing at Brighton, sorry.
Oh, my God, I know.
the random... If you all, listen to us, or you're, listening in podcast form, you just hear us, randomly chuckling, you're like, I didn't think that person who was talking even says something too funny. Usually it's the chat, and that was the case. Brighton just said, can't wait to hear what Taylor is saying. So he literally is listening with no audio.
Yeah.
Or watching with no audio. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's watching a silent film. I was looking at some of the other, best teams in the NBA, and, So I'm on StatMuse for this stat, and I only have access to the top 25 teams. And the Celtics are not in the top 25, as an example. So I can't even see where they're ranked. Somewhere beyond 25. Timberwolves 21. Dallas, Dallas were 11th, so a couple more spots ahead of the Thunder. It's interesting. I don't want this discussion to be like bench scoring equals more wins, but in the Thunder's case, they are a deep team. A lot of that depth is young players year to year. They're going to get better. And I think a lot of these guys are going to get better, which lead us to our next topic here. I want you to rank some players for me. And to set a baseline, are we going to, for the purpose of this conversation, do you want to assume that Alex Caruso is a starter?
I do want to assume he's a starter. However, just looking at the doc, because you prepared it ahead of time, being the great host you are,
Hey.
I like keeping him for this exercise and then moving on to like our next couple. I think it was a good idea that you removed him.
Okay, cool. So I want you to rank some players, 5 reserves, we can say, by projected points per game. So to quickly run through them, we got Isaiah Joe, averaged 8.2 points per game last season. Aaron Wiggins, 6.9 points per game last season. Isaiah Hartenstein, 7.8 points per game last season. Kaysen Wallace at 6.8 points per game last season. And Alex Caruso, 10.1 points per game last season. How would you rank those players in terms of who's going to score the most points per game?
Yeah, honestly, this is tough because you think
really
of like an Alex
close.
Caruso, right? And like,
Yeah.
and even Isaiah Hartenstein. I think it wasn't until like maybe it was a podcast we were doing a month ago, and we were going through the roster, and I pulled up Hartenstein thinking he averaged double-digit points, probably around that 10-point mark per game last season. He didn't. Like you said, he was at 7.8, and that was primarily as a starter with Mitchell Robinson being hurt last year. That surprised me a little bit. And so, like, I want to say if Alex Caruso is starting or starts the majority of the games, that he's going to have more than that. But, like, maybe Hartenstein's getting at least 10 off the bench because of opportunity, and they're about the same. So this gets tough. I will just give the disclaimer. What I've been saying and what I truly believe is that there's not going to necessarily be a quote-unquote starting 5 for the entirety of the season. I think it will depend on matchup. And we've seen in the past, especially this past season, when the Thunder were better and in contention, that Daigneault's not afraid to mess with lineups, whether it's starting, closing, everything in between. So that being said, I could see both of Caruso and Hartenstein starting throughout the season, but I still think Caruso probably gets more starts. What are your thoughts on that before I rank these guys?
That's where I think you and I have the same exact view. It's going to be one of Caruso or Hartenstein, and mostly Caruso.
Okay. Yeah. No, So with that being said, let's go ahead and start with Caruso. Again, just the improved opportunity. Something we talked about with Dan last night on his Thunder preview was that, he asked about Alex Caruso obviously being a good 3-point shooter, but on low volume. He's a little hesitant to shoot the three. And I think my response to that was, well, I don't think that's going to necessarily be an emphasis for the Thunder coaching staff to get him to put up more 3-point shots as much as the entirety of the team. I think they ranked like 16th. I pulled up last night and 3-point attempts per game. And that number has to go up for this team to continue to improve and get to where they ultimately want to be. So because of that, assuming Caruso plays a part in that, I think I'm going to go ahead and give him the nod at 1. I think he'll get up there a little more because they'll be asking him to shoot more from outside. His teammates are going to create more opportunities for him than where he's been previously. Next, again, I think you have to go Hartenstein just because of his role that he's going to have and the minutes he's going to get off the bench. Like I said, 7.8 points per game. That's probably pretty spot on with what he'll end up here. I know that seems low, but again, he does so much more than just scoring, and he will for this team. But that being said, with the creators that we have on this team, I think he'll probably end up scoring a little more than he did last year for the Knicks. So let's go Caruso, Hartenstein, and this is where it gets fun. I think the easy answer.
So many ways you could go. You could
so
go
right,
with, like,
you could go with any of these guys. Really, I think the easy answer is Isaiah Joe. But I've been cookie cutter for like the entirety of this segment. I'm gonna go Kaysen Wallace. 6.8 points per game off the bench last year, and I believe he got, was it the 6th or 7th most minutes of all Thunder players last year in totality. So assuming he's going to have a similar role, but also more opportunity to expand his game and then just hopefully continue to improve 3-point shooting within the flow of the offense, which I think will be better. Like, I just don't see Isaiah Joe going up much more. I kind of see him staying around the same. And I could see Kaysen getting up. I mean, 6.8, another 2 points per game, another basket a game, or even another 3-point shot, 3-point make per game would put him above Isaiah Joe last year. So I'm going to go Kaysen Wallace 3. And then 4, I'll go Isaiah Joe. Just like I said, I think he'll probably stay around that 8 points per game mark, which is great. That's exactly what we need from him. And then I'll end with Aaron Wiggins at 6.9 points per game. Wiggins is just impossible to predict because his role fluctuates on a night-to-night basis. Again, we talked about this some last night also.
He's not always he's not always there to score. Like, he's there for so many other things. Like,
right.
Cutting is part of it, yes. Just like to provide that different level of spacing that no one else can really offer. The defense is great. The passing is nice. He's kind of there for everything. So he doesn't have. I like him. I probably would have put him last, also, because of that. Like, he's just a do it all glue guy.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like even if he has less points off the bench than 6.9 this season, but still plays the same, I could see him having an even bigger impact because of all the things you just mentioned, and the way he's able to fit in so many different lineups. So that's where I'm going. Silva, what are your thoughts? Would you change some of those? How are you feeling?
The biggest thing I would change, first of all, I love George Goodwin in the chat. Gonna have like 10 guys getting 10 points per game minimum. We have too many good players. That's kind of where I'm at too. It's like, how many guys are going to average double digits on this team? Because you could convince me any order here, really, and I would buy into it in some degree. Like Aaron Wiggins leading in scoring, or Kaysen leading in scoring would be surprising to me. But you could tell me that Joe Hartenstein or Caruso lead the reserves in points, and I'd be okay with that. Like, Joe specifically was the guy that I maybe would have put higher, just because I could see all he does is shoot threes, and I think he's going to take more, and he needs to take more, especially after getting paid now. Like, his job is secure. Just fire away, buddy. Like, we need someone to fire away, and I think it should be him. And I could see him going up. But again, how many guys can? There's only so many points you have to go around. Only so many possessions and shots you have to go around. What the conclusion this leads me to is, like, it's a pretty deep team, pretty
Very
nice
deep
collection
team
of players.
And we're not even talking about guys that, again, Mark Daigneault is very intentional about this. And so, look, the bench that we have here, that's probably going to be the mainstays that we see the most on a night-to-night basis, but most importantly, later in the regular season and obviously come playoff time. But that being said, like we saw last year with Ousmane Dieng getting some occasional, again, I'm talking like 4 minutes a game, but they're going to give the Ousses, and then one night it'll be Dylan Jones, and I doubt AJ Mitchell gets a ton, but he'll get in there. Just players like that.
Kenrich,
right?
Haven't even
That's
mentioned
somebody else we
Kenrich.
haven't even talked about. Like,
Who's
that's
good?
the embarrassment of riches. Jay Will. We haven't even talked about Jay Will. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I really like Jay Will as a player, but
so we're going to see those guys get mixed in, especially earlier on this season, just kind of see what works and what doesn't, because that's what Mark and this organization does. But that being said, I think this is a list worth ranking. I don't see any of those guys we just mentioned getting ahead of any of these players in terms of points per game.
No. All right. One last question before we go to our ad break. And I think we both may have the same answer. Who among those players we just discussed will see the largest jump in their points per game?
Man, this is like you said, Silva. Like you mentioned, you could see like any of those three players you mentioned leading the bench and bench points. And I could see any of these players making a jump. I mentioned Isaiah Hartenstein, his new role with OKC, seeing him go up from 7.8 points per game to like closer to 10. But I got to stick to my guns. I said I had Kaysen Wallace over Isaiah Joe, and therefore I think he'll make the biggest leap. And we aren't talking huge leaps. None of these guys are going to go up like 4 or 5 points per game. Otherwise, they'd be starters, just because of opportunity. And you have to take in mind usage. And that usage is going to go, as it should, to Shea, Chet, J-Dub. But yeah, go ahead and give him Kaysen Wallace. I think he'll be flirting with like 9.
Give me Kaysen Wallace too.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to forget how awesome he was, especially for the first like third of the season. He was dynamite, shooting an outrageous percentage, making all the right plays. His volume was just low. He was tiny PJ Tucker is kind of what he ended up being for the Thunder. But I think he could be so much more than that, and he is going to be a little buried in the depth chart in terms of Caruso being in front of him, Lou Dort being in front of him. You could lump Isaiah Joe into that also if you wanted to.
It's a good point.
But Kaysen is really, really, really good. Really good. And I think he has the biggest opportunity for growth maybe out of any of these players in terms of where he's at now near his floor and what his ceiling could be. Like, his ceiling could be higher than It could be a Caruso-like ceiling, I think. We haven't talked about the potential of Cason Wallace that much because there's just so many other guys to talk about.
I think one name you hear the most often from Thunder fans, it's just like, again, nobody's saying, like last night, Jacob was saying that maybe Chet's ceiling as an offensive player is similar to that of Kevin Durant, but obviously he with the disclaimer, we're not saying Chet's going to be Kevin Durant. So in a similar vein, I think you could say that like a Drew Holiday type of player is what you're looking for in Cason. Because one thing with Cason that we haven't seen with the Thunder, because he hasn't needed to, and because he hasn't been asked to yet, and I think something the Thunder wants to see more of is his on-ball, his ability to play on-ball. That's why I was a little surprised we didn't see him solo when we were in Vegas or even before that, and at least in Utah for the Salt Lake City Summer League. I was surprised he didn't play at all because I thought he was going to get some of those on-ball reps. Even if it was like J-Dub 2 summers ago at Salt Lake where he plays a couple games, because that's a part of his game that the Thunder just haven't really explored yet. And we've seen that from him both in high school, coming up through grassroots, and then also with Kentucky. And I always forget who the starting point guard was 2 years ago, whenever Cason kind of took over those main ball handling and creation duties. So yeah, I think when you think about what he's capable of and like the kind of ceiling he could reach, it's the Drew Holiday archetype, being a great defender, a knockdown shooter when he needs to be, being able to space the floor, but also you can put the ball in his hands as a primary ball handler in second units, whatever it may be, and he can create for others and for himself. So obviously that's a very high bar, and the Thunder hate player comps. Thunder PR is listening to this and they're rolling their eyes, but I think that is kind of the archetype we're looking at with Cason. Do you have any other names?
If you're going to be compared to a player, Drew Holiday's a pretty damn good player to be compared to. Just the ultimate like winner, always making the right play, doing the right thing. I mean, he's been like the piece that has helped two teams win a title the last few years. That's the guy you want to be compared to. And Cason's a little smaller, I think. I think Drew's closer to 6'4", Cason 6'2". I like Cason's shot on paper a little more than Drew's. Drew's kind of struggled with that at times. So the comp is not exact, but it's the archetype. It's the style of play I think we're talking about the most with him. And it's something to really get excited about. It's like if the Thunder ever have, everyone knock on wood at the same time, if there is ever an injury in the starting lineup, that's someone you can look forward to. It's like, whoa, what can this guy do?
Yeah, who's going to step up in this player's stead? Is Cason Wallace is one of the first names that comes to mind. I think you're 100%. Exactly right. And that's kind of like one of the biggest questions of this offseason is, you've added this talent in Hartenstein and Caruso, these veterans that are proven, and you want to continue to build off what you built last season, but you also want these guys to continue to improve. And we know the Thunder continue to value that and want to see these players continue to get opportunities. And so that's why, I don't think it's just like game one, we're going to have a set lineup. We're going to see a lot of different variations earlier in the season, in that first half of the season. And Cason Wallace on ball, maybe that's some of it.
There's going to be nights where it's like, why didn't Aaron Wiggins get any minutes? Or why did Isaiah Joe only play 6 minutes? There's a lot of interesting players to check out.
Yeah, people are going to get mad when they say, those 4 minutes that Oos got could have gone to Cason Wallace. And it's like, yes, and they will eventually, potentially. Yeah. But no, I think you're spot on.
Last season, people would get mad if Lindy got minutes. I think this season, people are going to get mad. Who is the guy? I think it's Usman. I think people are going to get mad if Usman gets minutes.
And I'm telling you all right now, let it be on the record. It won't last, I don't think, unless Us explodes, and that's incredible for this team. That's a great thing, but it won't last.
It just seems a little sexy.
It's so great to have Silva on because we get all the Sounders.
Throw some mayo on that glizzy.
We've had some great Sounders this offseason.
Yeah.
We really added to
cream cheese in the chat from George.
Shout out George, he's in the chat.
Is that the same George?
It's the same George.
Oh my God. You're a legend.
Good stuff.
I derailed this. It's time to go to break. After that, we're going to do a little draft comparing some reserve units across the top of the West. We'll be right back. And we're back. Taylor, do you have a message for the audience?
I do. To all the degenerates out there watching us live, listening on the podcast, again, that is with all the endearment. All of our listeners, we appreciate you so much. And this is a great opportunity to get back to you from our podcast network. Would you all like an extra $500? I would. I know Silva would. He's moving to a new home. Well, go to bluewirepods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for our audiences and in turn help this show at the Uncontested as well as all Blue Wire podcasts. That's bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions, and it really is simple. I looked at the survey, it's not very much, and you can potentially win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. Again, that's bluewirepods.com/survey, and we'll be sure to also post this link in the show notes of our episode once it's posted.
It is so hard for me to not say bucks every time you say bucks.
$500.
And I'm like, no, he's doing an ad read. I can't do it. He's doing an ad read.
I can't play the sounder. I can't do it. The best part is we have my sounder, and you're so good at you'll play my sounder first, and then you'll play everybody else doing the bucks afterwards.
Yeah.
Back-to-back sounders.
Can't do it. See,
You got
Smoot, bucks. Smoot.
Oh, I was teeing you up.
Oh, God.
Bucks.
Bucks. Bucks. We got
Bucks.
That's so good.
just keeps going.
Gosh, I need to go back and listen to the episode that I said it for the first time.
It's really
Bucks. Big ol' rack.
good.
Take the
It's a
boy
big
out of
ol'
Owasso. You can take the boy out of Owasso, but you can't take the Owasso out of the boy.
This is true. Smoot says, "What's the book that JD has on the bookshelf?" It's Brandon Sanderson. It's a Mistborn. It's a pretty sick fantasy book.
We need to make this a regular segment. Silva's book of the
What book is
podcast.
behind me?
Book of the week.
All right.
Did Taylor just say he has an intern? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Don't know what I said that was similar to that, George, but
Cool if you did.
it'd be very cool, yeah, if we had an uncontested intern. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Make them play all the sounders.
That's right.
Look at this, a little Google Doc for those watching along. We're going to do a little draft. These are 4 bench players from the projected top 4 seeds in the Western Conference. That's the Thunder, that's the Timberwolves, that's the Nuggets, that's the Mavericks. We're going to draft them because I think it could be fun to see where the Thunder guys stack up. And it's going to be hard because as I was putting this list together, I was like, man, some of these guys stink. But that's what the exercise is for. We're going to be, we're going to be objective. And
As much as we can be.
yeah, we're going to see where we go.
I like it.
You want to go first? We'll just do some ping.
Yeah.
pong.
Ping pong. We can't do snake draft with 2 people.
Oh,
I guess.
something off the top. Oh, we should assume that Derek Lively is going to start for the Mavericks, right?
Yes. But honestly, you have both of them listed kind of together. I mean, I think you can put them both on the list individually.
Okay. So let me take off.
But I see your point. If Derek Lively's starting, does he really
then
count?
Let's just do. We'll put Gafford there because Lively should be better than Gafford at this point and should play, especially after how last season ended. He's pretty awesome. All right, first pick. And take your time. Take your time.
So I did a little homework before, and by homework
Okay.
I mean I pulled the doc up and read it prior to the podcast. Read through the names, and there's only one player on this list that's finished top 3 in 6 Man of the Year votes, and that's Naz Reid. What he's doing for the Timberwolves is incredible. He obviously could be a starter, but fits into his role so well. I don't need to pull up stats and bore everybody with what he's produced over the past couple of seasons, but I think Naz has to be the first pick here.
Totally agree. That guy's awesome. And when they move on from either Gobert or Cat, that guy can just slot right in and do everything. He is awesome. We used to kind of try and make him be a trade candidate for the Thunder back in the day.
Yep.
He's too good for he's too good for that.
Yeah.
He's not poachable.
Yeah, it'd take Case and Wallace, and they'd probably ask for a pick, and you're not doing that.
No. Okay. Number 2. Let me see what we got here. A lot of good options. Let me not be extremely biased here. I think I'm going to go Isaiah Hartenstein.
That's what I was thinking.
Is that crazy?
Nope. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I mean, he's making $30 million a year for a reason, folks. He's really, really good. Finished top 10 last year in defensive EPM, I believe. Are these numbers going down as I... What the hell
Oh, we lost
happened?
our first 2.
What the hell happened?
Hit the redo. The redo button.
Go back.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. That's funny.
No,
Oh,
I think you're spot on. And like we've seen Isaiah be a backup really his entire career up until last year, whenever Mitchell Robinson, and until this past year when Mitchell Robinson got hurt, like I mentioned earlier. And we saw what he was capable of as a starter. Like I said, for this team, for the Thunder, he's likely going to be a bench player, but that doesn't mean he's not going to get a ton of minutes and be incredibly impactful. So I think that's the right answer.
Now, Isaiah Hartenstein, he and I have a prior relationship because he blew multiple parlays for me by he played while he was hurt, and Tibbs, like he played with an injury, so he would show up as healthy on the injury report on Prize Picks or whatever. Really, he was hurt, and he was just being a hard ass playing for Tibbs. So Tibbs would play him for like 7 minutes, and he'd go like 0-1-0 because he was actively hurt. But hey, I've moved on.
Could have just kept selecting the unders there.
I know. I should have. All right. Who is next?
Next one is tough. Yeah, there are a lot of good names. The ones that stick out to me the most are Gafford.
Yeah,
we saw what Gafford's capable of firsthand, although
he's a total bastard. He's awesome.
But he did not have the same production outside of the Thunder series, but still an incredible player. And we saw the impact he had after the deadline when the Mavericks acquired him. And that was somebody that we talked a lot about as a potential target for OKC. The other one, Nickel, Alexander Walker, Shea's cousin. I'm a big fan. Great defensive player who just fit into his role perfectly with the Wolves, kind of found his belonging, I think, after bouncing around a little bit early in his career. And we saw him play really well for Team Canada as well in a similar role. But then you also have the Thunder guys and Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, who are just incredibly impactful. So of those names, I think I'm going to go ahead and give the nod to Gafford. I mean, he's experienced. Like Hartenstein, he's had starter reps when he was in Washington, and just the impact he had, not just specifically against the Thunder, but the way he really helped that Mavericks team after the deadline. That's why I'm giving him the nod over guys like Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, or a Nickel.
I think that's fair. That's probably who I would have went with also. Funny we went 3 bigs in a row.
Yeah.
3 bigs in a row here. Okay. Who am I going next? Nikhil is looking right at me. He's looking right at me. I never would have... I mean, he was pretty irrelevant for the first, 3 years of his career, bouncing around from, like, New Orleans, Portland, I forget where else. Maybe Utah. I think Utah.
I was trying to remember that too. Yeah, you're right.
And then lands in Minnesota, and he's like... They have to play him. He's too good to keep off the court. He's super good defensively.
It's like their 7th man behind Nas.
It's like their 7th man. I gotta go Nikhil. I think I have to go Nikhil here. As much as I love some Thunder guys that are looking right at me also, I think Nikhil is like, you have to play him because he's too valuable defensively.
I think you're spot on. Also, I was going through the names I was considering with Gafford, and I completely glossed over Case and Wallace. That's the issue when doing these exercises, and we're on the spot. I obviously would pick Casing up in that tier as well, even as a rookie. So now I'm really torn. And honestly, I'm deciding between the 3 Thunder guys. And really, it's 2 Thunder guys, Isaiah Joe and Case and Wallace.
To give a quick recap for those just listening on your audio podcast platform of choice, first pick was Naz Reid. Second pick, Isaiah Hartenstein. Third pick, Daniel Gafford. Fourth pick, Nikhil Alexander Walker.
I think a lot of people will, or at least half of our listeners will disagree with me here amongst the Thunder players left, but I'm going to give the nod again to Case and Wallace over Isaiah Joe. I understand how valuable that outside shooting is in Isaiah Joe. He's also extremely underrated around the league and amongst just general NBA fandom when it comes to his defensive ability, as well as just being able to create, move off ball. He's not just a 3-point shooter, but Casey Wallace still just has so much potential. And as a rookie, being able to come in and contribute like he did, I think the things that stood out to me the most was his confidence that he came out with as a rookie. It didn't matter. You could put him in a big game situation. He was going to perform. Obviously the shooting or the defensive ability and then the shooting. And so because of that, combined with some of the stuff we talked about with Kaysen, like the on-ball, on-ball opportunities, just the potential he still has as a player in general, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And he's gained a bunch of pounds. He's like 200 plus. Give me Kaysen Wallace over Isaiah Joe.
I think it's the right move. There's a reason why he was closing games at the end of last season. He may have closed games in the playoffs. I don't quite remember. But like he was trusted in that spot to come in there and just be a part of a death lineup next to Lou Dort and just putting guys in absolute hell. And that's like a skill that is insanely insane. Isaiah Joe has his elite skill of shooting. Kaysen Wallace has an elite skill of defense, and he can still shoot the piss out of the ball. Like he's a rare player. And now that leads me to pick 6, and I'm pretty torn between a few names. It's Isaiah Joe. It's Peyton Watson.
Yep.
And some of these names I truly don't even know. Like Julian Strother, where the hell is he going to go? I don't know. Rob Dillingham, where's he going to go?
It's still very unproven.
Hasn't played yet.
Yeah, right.
Dinwiddie, is he good at all anymore? I don't know. I think I'm going to go Isaiah Joe here.
I feel the correct answer.
Safest going Isaiah Joe. I do like Peyton Watson, and I feel like he could be picked very soon here. But Isaiah Joe gives you a guarantee of shooting 40 to 43% from 3, potentially pulling a game out of his ass that your team should not have won. And that's a very valuable skill to have.
Like his coming out party against the Mavericks 2 seasons ago.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's exactly what he did. And
yes.
We saw him close games in the playoffs against the Mavericks for a reason and be slotted into that starting role for Josh Giddey for a reason. No, I agree with you completely. So next, I am torn between Wiggins and Peyton Watson. And this is where I try not to be biased. I think if you had some national media people on this podcast, they probably would go with Peyton just because he is high upside still, a solid perimeter defender who can hold his own, has great size. But I'm still so torn because we know what Aaron Wiggins can do. Dan, I mentioned the podcast that Jake and I did last night a couple times now, but he thinks that Aaron Wiggins is the most underrated player that gets regular playing time in the NBA.
Yeah.
I'm like really torn on this one.
It's really difficult.
It is. One thing is Aaron Wiggins, I don't have stats pulled up in front of me, but I think Peyton Watson struggled some from 3 early in his career, his first 2 years in the league. He may be a better overall defender than Wiggins at this point, but Wiggins is so much more off ball. And just the ability to have a player off the bench come in and, like you said, be the Swiss Army knife. If you need defense, you can put Wiggins in. You need rebounding, you can put Wiggins in. You need just a spark plug off the bench in terms of intensity, you put Wiggins in. Sometimes he can give you the spark just being a scorer. So I'm going to go Aaron Wiggins. I'm going to be a little biased.
I think that's really good. And how many, if Aaron Wiggins played outside of Oklahoma City, Nick has brought this up before. If he played in Milwaukee, would he be like their 3rd best wing?
Yeah.
Like he's
like their 7th guy.
He'd be like their 7th guy, no doubt. If he played on the Lakers, he would need to be playing 25 to 30 minutes a game. He's a luxury for the Thunder at this point, and he is super well-rounded, and I think that's the right pick here. Let me type this in really quick.
George also brings up a great point in the chat. He says Aaron Wiggins say basketball, and none of these other players on the list say basketball.
This is true.
So I feel better about my pick.
Peyton Watson, who I'm going to go ahead and take now with the 8th pick. He has the physical tools that maybe Aaron Wiggins doesn't have, but the skill is not there. Peyton Watson is like a more raw physical talent. But my lasting memory of Peyton Watson is Shea crossing the hell out of him and hitting the game winner in Denver.
Yes.
That's my lasting memory of Peyton Watson. I know he's better than that, and I know he's going to get a lot of minutes this season, and he's going to have to be important since they lost KCP. Like, he and Christian Brown are kind of the replacements there. Yeah, I feel comfortable taking him with the 8th pick here, Peyton Watson.
Think that's spot on. And I was just going to say, kind of like you mentioned, Silva, a quick aside, just because we do have a little time. Like, man, losing KCP, and then you mentioned Peyton Watson was, I mean, again, I have to go back and look at that play and see who was originally guarding Shea, and if they wanted Peyton actually switch on to him, etc. But I mean, honestly, without KCP, that's probably their best perimeter defender. I mean, Aaron Gordon's just a jack of all trades, and maybe he goes up there. But in terms of a smaller player than Aaron, who's able to guard multiple wings and guards, it's probably Peyton now without KCP. And that, I mean, I like Peyton Watson a lot, but that's scary if you're the Nuggets.
Scary. They're relying on not just youth, but like truly unproven youth, and it's a scary place to be. This is also a turning point in my mind in this draft. We're now at pick 9, and things are going to start to get a little stinky. Like the quality, I don't want to say the quality of player, but the level of like guaranteed output you're getting from this point on is going to be spotty. So keep that in mind, everyone.
Gosh, that means I'm up, isn't it?
It is. It does.
Oh, man. I mean, like you said, you could go with some proven veterans. Obviously, OKC legend Russell Westbrook, one of my favorite players my favorite player of all time.
You got people. You got Tony Taylor in the chat calling for Russ. Let me give another update of where we are. So from pick 1 to 8, here's what we have so far: Naz Reid, Isaiah Hartenstein, Daniel Gafford, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, Peyton Watson. So of those top 8, if you're following along at home, keeping score, 4 of them are Thunder players.
That's
sweet.
pretty awesome.
And then some
and we're biased,
names.
but
we're biased,
I
but hey.
think people would agree.
Yeah. Some remaining names that we now have to choose from for the next 8 since we're halfway through. Julian Strother. Does that do anything for you? Russell Westbrook, Dario Saric, Rob Dillingham, Joe Ingles, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dante Exum, and Jaden Hardy. Nick's going to come in the chat here and say, Jaden Hardy should be going at 8.
Well, that's where I'm torn because I'm viewing this draft not just like right now in a vacuum, to use a Nickism, speaking of Nick, but also I am a big upside guy, like giving these guys opportunities. If I'm drafting a bench right now, I want players who are going to be able to contribute for me long-term also, which is why I'm kind of leaning away from a Russell Westbrook. Somebody said you can't disrespect Russ by not, taking him now. And I understand that. At the same time, like if I'm thinking about this draft the way I am, I want more upside than that. We know Russ is on the decline after an all-time career. Obviously, Dante Exum's got mentioned in the chat as well. His comeback from like bouncing around the league, being out of the league, coming back into the league, and then being a really good role player for the Mavericks there in terms of scoring and also his defense. Like that's been really cool. Seeing him and FIBA playing well, like that's another name I'm thinking of. But I'm going to get crazy here. Probably the first like crazy pick of the draft. I'm going Rob Dillingham. Give me the upside.
I like it.
Give me the
really,
spark
really
plug
like
off the bench. I mean, that's one thing that all these elite teams have. All these contenders have. They have a 6-man or somebody off the bench who can come in and score. Rob's really small, and that's my biggest concern about him. But he has that bulldog in him, right? And he also is able to play make, be on ball, and create for teammates. He's going to really have to work on that and improve to make it in the league, I think. But I like that upside. I'm going Rob here.
That's where I would have gone too. Roll the dice on someone that's really exciting. I think that it makes a lot of sense. You could end up with a microwave scorer here at the 9th pick also.
Yep.
Oh God, who am I gonna take at pick 10? Let's see. Julian Strother, Russell Westbrook, Dario Saric, Joe Ingles, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dante Exum, and Jaden Hardy. You know what I think I might have to do here is I think I'm gonna go Spencer Dinwiddie.
Ooh,
I'm not
interesting.
I'm not inspired by that, But how many of these names am I inspired by? It was either going to be Spencer Dinwiddie or Dante Exum
Okay.
for me.
Again, maybe this is the homer in me, but this is where I probably would have taken Russ.
Yeah, which
But
is
that's
fair.
the homer in me.
No, it's fair. It's fair. Oh, God.
Don't let me influence you. Stick to your guns.
Let me go. Let me go Spencer Dinwiddie. He may have converted his entire contract into cryptocurrency once upon a time, but he is still a talented playmaker. He might be physically washed a bit, but a lot of these guys left on the list are physically washed at this point. This is a guy that can create for you a little off the bench, which is what we care about here, and we're at pick 10, so cut me some slack.
That's fair. So at this point, there's, again, the NBA draft junkie in me who wants to go with upside again. But also, again, it's like we said, it's NFL season, which means it's NFL fantasy season. And there gets to a certain point in drafts where the value is just too high. Maybe I don't need another running back, but I'm willing to take a running back. Or maybe I don't need another receiver, but I'm taking the receiver here because it's just too good a value, which is why I'm going with Russell Westbrook. Russ still has enough left in the tank.
Thank you so much for doing that, because I've been watching our guy Tony here in the chat.
About to lose it. I'm out when you pick Joe over Russ. Joe Ingles over Russ. Nope, can't do that.
Yeah, would
That's
not
fair,
do
Tony.
that. Would not do that.
That is fair.
I agree with that pick. Russ still has something there. He's an emotion. He can be your locker room guy. Could be kind of a chaos player.
He's still capable of a 20-point night, and he's always going to get you those rebounds and those assists, even at this age.
100%. Okay, now I'm going to go Dante Exum. We have Julian Strother, Dario Saric, Joe Ingles, Dante Exum, Jaden Hardy. I'm going to go Dante Exum. I know the defense is going to be there. I know the athleticism is going to be there. He can guard up. Will his shot be there? Who the hell knows? But we're at pick 12, and this is our reality at this point. Some of you out there, one of you is just slamming your head into your car horn saying, "Why aren't you picking Julian Strother?" I don't know shit about Julian Strother. This was a side effect of this exercise. I picked 4 players that are going to get minutes on the top 4 seeds in the West. And damn it, I've heard Julian Strother is going to get a lot of minutes. So it's
added him to the list. I like it.
He's on the list.
Hey, I don't necessarily disagree with your Dante pick here. Like we said, we've seen him perform in big time games, and just his story is pretty incredible, and hopefully he's able to continue that. But I'm going to go with the other name I was considering at the Russ pick. I was leaning pretty heavy Russ, but the other name I considered was none other Silva than Julian Strother.
Okay.
He scored 30 points in Summer League one game this year. I mean, he can get buckets. He was a great college player. How tall is he? I need to look this up.
I need to look
quick.
at a picture of this guy because I don't even know what he looks like.
Come on, Wikipedia. 6'6". He's got the size, Silva. 6'6", 205. He can defend. He can play make for others. They list him as small forward shooting guard, but really he's kind of the modern archetype of a jumbo guard. He can play make when you need him to. He's a Gonzaga boy too. And those guys are well disciplined, and I'm a big Strother fan. I probably would have taken him earlier than some of these names, but I just couldn't. At this point, I couldn't take him over Russ quite yet. So, but this is where it gets really interesting. We have 3 names left, and
we do.
It's a toss up.
Yeah. Oh, Brighton, you've missed so much. You left for a while, and now here you are. With the 14th pick in our all reserves draft, we got Dario Saric, Joe Ingles, Jaden Hardy, and I'm going Jaden Hardy. I want that scoring upside. Nick at this point has spilled his hot coffee all over himself because Jaden Hardy is the 14th pick. He got some he was like the break glass in case of emergency guy for the Mavs last year in the playoffs when they were like, shit, nothing's working. Bring out Jaden Hardy. It didn't, and it didn't work, but that tells me something.
No, you're right. Again, here at the end of the draft, it's
he's
upside.
One of those cursed Ignite guys.
True.
That's how I remember him. He's a cursed G League Ignite player.
Very true. I think that set him back, honestly. He's a scorer. he can get hot. We saw him do it last year in a couple games. Just the consistency, and then again, some kind of the size is a bit of an issue, but I like that pick here.
Yeah. Okay. The moment we've all been waiting for.
The last two picks. I get to pick
between
Sarge and Ingles. Oh, man. Oh. Flip a coin at this point, honestly. I like Sarge's ability to be able to space the floor. That being said, even when he was in a better situation for him, I think, with Golden State, he still didn't contribute a lot. He did enough to stay in the rotation. Joe Ingles is getting old. That is old man Ingles at this point.
Yeah.
Did not quite have the impact for the Magic. I think that.
How old is Joe Ingles?
Yeah, I'm curious.
I typed in how old is Joe, and Biden was the first result.
Checks out.
Minnesota. Joe Ingles is 36.
36. Ugh.
Yeah.
I still kind of want to take Joe here just because you know what he's going to do. He's going to be able to space the floor and get those shots up, especially in a more limited role, like with the Magic. And he also, I mean, I just love Joe, like his on-court persona. He's willing to bark at guys. He fit in with the Thunder dog culture. Even as old as he is, old man Ingles, I'm still going him over Sarge, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the right move. That's the right move. And that leaves me with none other than Dario Saric.
Former Thunder. Not quite great.
And not great, but he certainly played basketball in Oklahoma State. And he will now play an important bench role for the Denver Nuggets. Right? It is for the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, now that the draft is complete, I want to look at where, because we said we were going to go 45. Look at us. We're already at 52 and a half. Quickly, let's see kind of where these teams plotted out. Like, who has the most players in the top half, so on and so forth. So, the Thunder, the team we cover, they had Isaiah Hartenstein, and in between 16 players, they had Isaiah Hartenstein at 2, Kaysen at 5, Isaiah Joe at 6, Aaron Wiggins at 7. So they had 4 guys in the top 7.
I feel good about that.
Does any other team have 4 guys in the top 7? Let's see. In Minnesota, Naz Reid at 1. Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 4. And that's it for the top 7.
Rob Dillingham at 9.
Rob Dillingham at 9 is the next
top
guy.
10, but yep.
Yeah. Now, Naz Reid carries a lot of weight because he's like a 6th man of the year candidate. Makes total sense. Then they had, Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Rob Dillingham at 9, and then who was the next guy for them?
Is that it? Is Dinwiddie with the?
They had
who
4
he ended
guys.
up with? I can't remember. Is he with the Mavericks? Like I thought.
They had 4 guys. Who the hell is the other guy?
Dinwiddie's with the Mavericks. I was right.
Yeah.
Are you sure? There's Ingles is with the Magic. Sarge is with the Nuggets. Hardy's with the Mavericks.
Wait, Ingles. Denver. Ingles is with the Timberwolves.
Oh, sorry. Okay, good point. Sorry.
Okay,
you're right.
Because I had Terrence Shannon Jr. on here, but I was like, that's too many.
Yeah, you're right. He's with the Wolves. I completely forgot about that. I like that for him. I like that a lot.
So interesting placement for the Timberwolves. They had some high end bench players and some really low end bench players. On to the Mavericks, because I want to save the worst for last. The Mavericks, they got Daniel Gafford at 3 in our draft. And they have Spencer Dinwiddie at 10, Dante Exum at 12, Jaden Hardy at 14.
Not awful.
Yeah. Oh, Smoot says Slow-Mo is gone. Yeah, he is gone. He's on the Warriors now. That's weird.
That is weird.
Yeah, so pretty weak cluster of players for the Mavericks there, if I'm being honest. But even more so, the Denver Nuggets. They have, let's see, who is the first player we took from the Nuggets? That'd be Peyton Watson at 8.
Peyton Watson.
Peyton Watson was the first reserve player for the Denver Nuggets that we chose in this draft. And then it's Julian Strawther. And then it's Dario Saric. Who the hell else is here? Did I miss someone?
Oh,
did I get 4?
You said Strawther. You're right.
Did I? It should be 4.
Oh, did you do 4 for each team?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
So
Peyton Watson.
Julian Strother.
Russ. You forgot Russ.
Oh,
That's a weird
tough.
one, too. Really
That is
weird
super
one.
weird. Yeah, the Denver Nuggets bench is not good. And the Mavericks
Not great.
bench is also suspect. But some of these teams play like 8 or 9 guys the whole season. And they're cool with that. The Thunder, meanwhile, are going to be playing like 11. And they're going to feel pretty
which is
good about
awesome.
it. So,
And then they can shorten that rotation as the season goes along and into the playoffs. Silva, you want to read off the list in order really quick before we
Yes.
you just close out.
Yeah. The list in order. We have Naz Reid at 1, Isaiah Hartenstein at 2, Daniel Gafford at 3, Nikhil Alexander-Walker at 4, Kaysen Wallace at 5, Isaiah Joe at 6, Aaron Wiggins at 7, Peyton Watson at 8, Rob Dillingham at 9, Spencer Dinwiddie at 10, Russell Westbrook at 11, Dante Exum at 12, Julian Strother at 13, Jaden Hardy at 14, Joe Ingles at 15, Dario Saric at 16.
I like it. I think we did pretty good. I'm trying to find this comment really quick. Where'd it go? Somebody had a really good comment. They said this team could win 50 games in the East.
Damn. That's true. I think it was George earlier on.
Georgie. Play the sounder, Silva.
Cream cheese in the chat from George.
That's really good.
Thank you. You're the best.
All right. Well, what did we learn, everybody? The Thunder have a good bench. That's what we learned. That was fun.
That was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Wonder if we should do that with like top 4 rotation players from each of the top 4 teams and see where we end up. I think that could be cool. What else are we going to do? It's the off season. We got some time to kill. Damn it.
We're almost there.
Yeah. Speaking of that, our next episode will be Sunday. Who knows what we're going to talk about? Maybe there'll be some news between then and now and then. Probably not, but we'll be here.
Maybe we'll be an NFL podcast for us Sunday and just break down
NFL
all the
only.
games.
Talk about the Vikings playing the Giants, and the Giants are wearing some horrific looking uniforms. You'll have to check it out after this. They're so ugly. Sorry, and if anyone's a Giants fan in this chat or that's listening afterwards.
We're just sorry in general if you're a Giants fan, not even uniforms.
Sorry about everything. Congrats on Neighbors, though. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us in the chat. As always, I can't speak. Until next time, though, adios and Thunder up.